In a post-COVID world, when everything seems to be uncertain, everything seems to be ambiguous, if there is someone who comes and says, relax, you do what you're supposed to do, I'll take care of the rest. I think it comes like a big relief to anybody. But I think today's salespersons, today's marketing persons should probably be focusing on, apart from energy and enthusiasm, which everybody talks about, probably to tone it down a little bit and be empathetic. Uh, Going exactly against the grain, the typical image of a salesperson, if you were to look at 10 years back, read books, watch plays, see movies, and there are so many of these sell me that pen kind of videos and stuff like that, where the typical sales guy, and the words are scary, Venkatesh, pushy, sleazy, dominating, very, very garrulous, words that look very negative, conniving, contradiction, conflagration, con man. So instead of con, con, em, empathy, empathetic, I guess, are probably going to matter far more. So this is another lesson learned thanks to bad times, thanks to good times and bad times. So life is
Yes,
full
sir.
of lessons.
Agreed completely. Because of the words, like as you rightly said, pushy salesman or whatever it is, the entire profession has actually got a bad name because of that. And by the time when you say I am a salesman, you are actually looked down, saying, "Oh, you are only a salesman." So the value that I bring to the table, nobody notices it because of the sleaziness or because of the chivalrous thing, because of lot of negativity which has come to this world with the word sales. So sales has lot of sales is only marketing thing which I have found which has more of negativity. Marketing doesn't have that. Marketing is considered a very upmarket job, whereas sales is always considered as something which is you don't have anything in this world. Go and do a sales work. You become a salesman. So sales always had this negative connotation.
As I keep saying nowadays, is you can design a product superb, you can manufacture it precisely, you can price it attractively, you can advertise it seductively, you can package it sexily. But unless you pick up that product go with your imagination and courage and conviction and sit in front of a customer who finally says, wow, this looks like changing my life or transforming the way I'm going to live, my friend, you're not selling. And that is the difference between staying in your warehouse or adorning the showroom of your customer. That's the difference between losses and profits. That is the difference between nothing happening and everything happening. And that is the difference between having to close down your business and thriving in the business. If the pandemic is not an indication of it, then what better indication do we have of both the nobility of the profession of sales or the efficacy of it? Let's look at a very simple example. When last year pandemic was recognized and lockdown was imposed, the first thought in people's mind was, where am I going to get my provisions? Where am I going to get my vegetables? Where am I going to get whatever I want to live? Medicines, maybe. What was the biggest feeling of relief during those months? When the delivery guy from whichever supplier, online, offline, landed up at your doorstep with all the precautions. Venkatesh, we all cheered the medical profession standing on our terraces, ringing bells and hitting those thalis. We cheered and we clapped for the security forces both at the border and in our own cities. Did anybody stand up and salute a salesperson who braved whatever, the weather, the risk of catching an infection, and also being out there delivering packet after packet to doorstep after doorstep? That big sense of relief that he was bringing into those families. I didn't find anybody cheering. But I knew that there was thankfulness on every homemaker's lip. Only thing is, I guess it wasn't made vocal. If this isn't the signs of a noble profession, then what is? So, if even under normal circumstances, forget the pandemic, think of it from this perspective. A senior citizen must sleep well, but he hasn't been able to get his strip of whatever sedative or that medicine that calms him down. Let me take this to another plane. Let's assume for a minute, Venkatesh, that you are selling newspapers and I'm selling ceramic tiles. Let us just assume this. For whatever reasons, because of constraints, you're not able to go out, you're not able to sell newspapers. For whatever reasons and constraints, I'm not, or I don't want to, or I can't, or I'm told not to go out and sell ceramic tiles. So production at both ends stops. If tiles are not going to be sold, they're not going to be manufactured and packed either. If packing isn't taking place, packing boxes are not required. If packing boxes are not required, corrugated sheets are not required. If corrugated sheets are not required, who is going to push that roll of paper to that factory that makes those sheets into boxes? Who is the man who pushes that car? It is a laborer who is paid on daily wages, which means for the next few days, this laborer is not going to be paid because he has no cart to push. Forget the laborer for a minute, think about his child. Who feeds that laborer's child milk every day? It is a salesperson, Venkatesh. It's as simple as that. All the armchair advisors, all the great marketing professors, all the great strategists sitting in their ivory towers will also agree that things happen when a sale takes place. And therefore, I can't think of a more noble profession. I can't think of a better paid profession. Let me be honest. I may have begun my career on the measliest of starting salaries. My father even commented when he saw the offer letter and he said, is there a typographical error? Have they missed out a couple of zeros in the salary column? And I said, no, this is what it is. He turned around and said, but you're not even going to get your quota of multivitamin pills. I said, Dad, who wants multivitamin pills? I'll have a bullet. Now, look at it from this perspective. I don't know how many more zeros have got added to that 200 rupees per month, Venkatesh. But I do know one thing. I do know one thing for sure. That we have all, as salespeople, added hundreds of thousands and millions of zeros to the income of our customers and into their exchequer. So if that isn't noble, if I take 2,000 rupees from you and get you 20 lakhs worth of knowledge or information or talent or protection or safety or growth or collaboration or whatever, this is what salespeople sell. They don't sell products. They don't sell services. They don't sell apps. What they sell is the most logical conclusion of a feature of a product getting converted into a benefit. So you don't sell a bulb, you sell an opportunity to win the Nobel Prize. You don't sell champagne, you sell celebration. You don't sell a Ferrari, you sell having arrived on page 3. At the end of the day, the salesperson makes people realize their dreams. This is exactly what I mean by the journey of a salesperson who I think whatever I could achieve in marketing was because I knew sales, I knew salespeople, and I could empathize with sales. Because to a marketing person, their first customer is not the man who buys your product. Your first customer in an organization to a marketing person is the salesperson who's going to buy the idea and go and sell the product. If you can't move him, you're only the business of moving, of influencing, of creating conviction. Everybody sells. A lawyer sells, a doctor sells, a chartered accountant sells. There's no stigma attached to them. The stigma attached to the salesperson as pushy or noisy or garrulous or over talkative or overbearing is something that should slowly disappear. And I guess it's the role of people like us who've been in this line for a long time to help them break that image, break that myth, shatter the glass ceiling, and come across as your friendly neighborhood salesperson.
Agreed, sir. If people like us take it through and make this profession a much more noble one, and when we start talking about it as a noblest profession, it becomes much more meaningful for the youngsters also to get into it. Because today youngsters are lured by basically more of marketing jobs. Nobody wants to sell it. Nobody wants to do anything. But yes, they want money. So as you rightly said, getting money, even when I started, it was a small amount. But getting money over a period of time, you get it, and you earn much more than a marketing guy in sales.
Yes, true. As I said, you can decide how much money you want to earn. There are many sales jobs where you receive rewards, you are incentivized. Intelligent sales people actually sit down and plan very well, very meticulously as to how much money they're going to earn. And somewhere along the way, I've been sharing this with friends and colleagues. You have a major conference coming up and you want a new suit? Well, let Mohanlal Maliram make it for you. You ages back, the boss used to tell you want to take your girlfriend out for dinner at Nero's because it was a restaurant you couldn't afford normally. Then just sell a couple of weighing scales to these tea sellers and you will get that dinner. So you're able to tangibly say, this is Venkatesh, I can't think of a job except a surgeon's job or a lawyer's job where you can measure job satisfaction at the end of the day tangibly. Today was a good day or today was a bad day based on what happened out there in the market. I can't think of any job.
So when I move from a sympathy to an empathy state, I become successful in sales. So earlier also, you rightly said, maybe an Eureka Forbes guy or somebody who used to take so much of heart out to come and talk to you. They will try and so you can actually differentiate between sympathy and empathy when a salesman talks. Okay, and this is something which I have learned over a period of so many years. Who is actually talking sympathetically and who is actually talking empathetically? Because I have gone through all these things.
Very true. So from going and telling a person that I'm sorry you had this problem, but I want to share this with you. I just need a couple of minutes of yours to tell you how you can overcome this. And believe me, it has worked in my case. And I'm convinced that will not only work in your case, you will actually be feeling delighted. At the end of the day, you are selling trust, you're selling faith, and you're selling that feeling of solace and comfort. So if you're not in the business of empathizing with people and actually owning their issues and obstacles, probably sales isn't the line for such people. But the bad news is, Venkatesh, the world is full of terrible sales guys. But the good news is, anybody can learn to sell. I have been to maternity hospitals. I've looked at the names outside the door, the ward, or the tags on the bed. Baby Sonia, baby Aditya, baby Rohan. I haven't seen a tag which says baby salesperson. Salespeople aren't born. They evolve. They become. They make themselves salespeople. And so, there is hope for everybody. Anybody can sell if you are willing to understand. When you told your parents that you wanted to move to a particular city to work, you sold to them. When I told my mother that this was the girl I wanted to marry, I couldn't announce to my mother. I needed to sell it to her. And I even probably needed to tell her that she probably is a descendant of the same Gujarati Baniya family as Mahatma Gandhi. So the point I'm trying to make is that we all sell at every moment. Why is it that the stigma happens? So probably as we work along, I don't know, Venkatesh, whether I should share this or not, but I have something called awards. There are many awards lying in my house, but the one award I want to talk about is an acronym, a terminology, a wave of awareness for regaining dignity for the salesperson. My movement to create awareness about salesperson, and to make salesperson sell with flair, devotion, integrity, and honesty. A wave of awareness for regaining dignity for the salesperson. Salespersons will not interrupt the sleep of senior citizens. They will not barge into the home of a homemaker. They will be respectful of the customer's privacy and that great dream. All those boards outside housing society, which almost rudely say that dogs, hawkers, and salespersons are not allowed. Those boards, I would have wanted them to be smashed 20 years back. But then I realized I was in Ahmedabad. Who's going to do it in Amreli or Amritsar or Amravati or Archikare? And I realized that even if I get a lot of youngsters to do it, how many boards? Why not get the housing society chairman and secretary to remove the board? Why not come across as dependable, reasonable, people full of integrity and care, people full of empathy, that the boards are removed and the housing society officials say, please, Mr. Salesperson, please come in because you make our lives. So, Venkatesh, I have about 3,500 youngsters with me on my page is called Achal Rangaswamy, the coach, and on my YouTube clip by the same name, my Instagram account by the same name, where we only talk of one thing: how to become responsible salespeople who practice integrity and honesty, but at the same time ensure that the customer gets what he wants. And there is a win-win situation on both sides. So awards is a movement that I launched to coincide with the launch of my book, Discovering the Joy of Selling, in the year 2014. So work is happening, the community is becoming bigger, and people are on the grow. So I sincerely hope that one day we will see those boards coming off the residential colony gates.
Incidentally, I also had coined a similar thing, which is called as this THIS. In all my previous organization, I used to keep talking about THIS, which is transparency, honesty, integrity, and sincerity. If you have this, it really works for anybody in this. So you have already added the last two, basically integrity, sincerity, honesty. Also, you have spoken about. So transparency also, if it is there, if I am transparent with you in my dailies, it becomes much more better for me to get accepted.
Absolutely. So somewhere along the way, like we've been talking about it, sales is the least, anticipated job or the least respected job. So most youngsters look down upon this. They feel they would like to be in marketing, but I always say this: if you can't sell, you'll never be a great marketing person. But I needed another opportunity. I needed forums. I used to, as head of sales and marketing at Amtrex Hitachi Air Conditioners and later at Bell Ceramics, I had many opportunities to hire youngsters to come into summer internship with us and also recruit them for marketing or sales roles. So whenever I would visit preschools, and I've visited many of them across the country, many of them, and I still do, I would not really talk so much about that internship assignment for the job as much as telling the kids what is important from their perspective when it comes to choice of careers. And so somewhere along the way, and then through my talks by a particular title, and also my book by the same title, Beyond the Uncharted Landscape, I guess I got them to learn to understand their true worth, understand what really moves them, understand where their strengths are. Most youngsters, unfortunately, what happens is identify their strengths, but focus too much on their weaknesses. Whereas I guess a more sane and effective thing would be to identify your weaknesses, but focus on your strengths. And if you do that, you're going to make a career of your choice. You're not going to blame the country, the government, your parents, or the pandemic for what went wrong. You're going to be doing what you always wanted to do. So in a way, you're not going to get up in the morning and say, I've got to go and work. You're only going to say, Let me fulfill chapter 1 or chapter 3 or chapter 7 of my fulfilling career. And later, as an offshoot of that, Venkatesh, I went and wrote Discovering the Joy of Selling because I wanted to teach youngsters how to fall in love with sales. Because if you love what you do, and if you do what you love, well, actually, it's like life is a long vacation. And you make enough time for yourself, apart from money and friends, you make a lot of time for yourself to do things that you always wanted to do, like ride a bike, play music, write, travel, explore the world, but at the same time, keep an eye on the watch and even teach people how to manage time, how to build extra time every day. For instance, one of the thoughts I've shared with youngsters pretty often, you may remember our discussion last summer where we looked at God has given us 168 hours a week. I'll give you 180 hours extra in a year. What will you do with those 180 hours that you get extra? And then people turn and say, my God, I could never imagine the kind of things I could do if I had that kind of time. And I tell people, you will have it. All it requires just a little bit of discipline, planning your day, and then working your plan. But not be automated because we're all human beings. We're not machines. And finally, when you're of help to people, when you make something good for the world, when everybody is busy making a living, and if you are in a position to make a life, I guess we go back to that very interesting thought that we are not human beings leading a spiritual existence. We are spiritual beings leading a human existence. When you can come handy to the other person and make him live his life. So the satisfaction of inspiring people and keeping them stay inspired, I guess, is what is likely to drive us people. Giving back to society, paying it forward, whatever you may want to call it. So when you begin your career at the lowest rung of the corporate ladder, but you reach a stage when you say, I've learned enough, I think it's time for me to now share. But then you learn as to how you can share better. So I guess I'm in that process now. The WIP part now is I'm learning how I can be of better use to society in general and salespersons in particular.
Yes, sir. In fact, I have been a beneficiary of your time management skills. I have learned a lot while even working in my first organization, where I learned the value of basically time management. And today I talk to students and entrepreneurs about the value of time management because of you. So you have written a book along with for Ahmedabad Management Association. The time is money. Apart from that, today, incidentally, is the 9th anniversary of your book, which was co-authored by Mr. M.S. Srinivasan, Beyond the Uncharted Landscapes. You also have written a book on the Discovering the Joy of Selling about 2 years later. Your son and wife has also written a book called as 46 plus 14 is equal to 06. So, how much these books have helped you to basically share your experiences with youngsters and any message that you want to give along with?
Well, as far as my books are concerned, I guess each of the books is aimed at telling people that you don't need to live an automated life or live mechanically. Time is Money is a very simple little booklet. I won't even call it a book. A very thin, small thing written in a very brief, crisp manner because time is money. I don't want people spending their time reading the book. I want them to implement that and get the best out of it. So you actually get a lot of time and practice what is called stress-free happiness. Beyond the Uncharted Landscape is a very simple, kind of a book which offers solace, comfort, peace to students saying you can build a career of your choice and feel fulfilled. Discovering the Joy of Selling is a book right out of my life. Some people call it a semi-autobiographical fiction where there is a guy who has no clue as to what he wants to do in life, but then discovers joy. He doesn't discover joy when he sells, Venkatesh. He doesn't discover joy because he gets orders. He discovers joy when a customer puts his arm around his shoulder and says, thanks, you made my day. You made my company succeed. You made my customers smile at me. So it's about, again, paying forward. As far as the books, actually, there are two that my wife and son have written together. The first one, which they wrote when Ravi Kiran was actually a student at the National Institute of Design, NID, Ahmedabad, was the story of a young boy who stutters and stumbles in his life, in his academic life, because schools don't consider him good enough to admit. So then, he was a slow learner. But over a period of time, he discovers his calling and then goes on to become a very happy practitioner of a particular profession. Today, Ravi Kiran is a writer, a photographer. This morning, he just finished, just before I began talking. He was taking a class for students of journalism at a very prominent communication school, media communication school. He not only teaches, he practices photography, various kinds. Along with his mother, who he considers his best friend, he wrote 46 plus 14 is equal to 06, a story of a genius, which is the story of this boy who stumbles through life and finally discovers his calling. He wrote this book with his mother on a visit to Auroville, where we now live, in Auroville in Pondicherry. This book was based out of these places, and it was actually the first piece of photographic fiction to be written by a mother and son. So both these books have gone into the Limca Book of Records for being the first effort by a mom-son duo. The first one being the first piece of fiction by a mom and son. The second being the first piece of photographic fiction by a mom and son. The second book is called Camera and Conversations. And it carries some brilliant stories where his imagination has come to work. So the pictures are real, the people are real, but he's built some very interesting stories. You don't necessarily have to do something just because your neighbor or your best friend at college does it. Do what your heart says, do what makes you happy. Because then, see, happiness is not at all a destination, it is your constant companion on the way to a fulfilled life. As a family, yes, we are very much into writing. Our styles are different, our genres are different. But yes, every day constructively some time goes into the making of a publication or a book or maybe a movie.
Thank you, sir. Your inspiration, your words will definitely make people look into sales as a first career rather than as a last career. And I hope through your entire experience, you can coach more students, you can go to various institutes, you can talk to institutes about how sales is a noble profession. And I hope that tomorrow we all make together a world a much more happy place to be. Thank you very, very much, sir. Once again, it was really insightful meanings that you
Thank
were
you very
sharing
much,
along.
Venkatesh, thanks for the opportunity to talk, and it was enjoyable chatting with you as usual. The only thing was this time I'm aware that you probably are recording it. Earlier I don't know, but I've always enjoyed talking to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you very
I
much,
wish
sir.
you the very best.
Thank you.